drink and like a cookie. Great name. Good evening, members of the Kootenai County Republican Committee. I'm a teacher at the Coeur Charter Academy. I teach the history of Western civilization, and that's what I'm here to talk to you about tonight. We have a society whose motto is E pluribus unum, out of many, one. But the pluribus has been emphasized over the last few generations at the expense of the unum. Last week I spoke before the State Board of Education to talk with them about altering the graduation requirements for Idaho high school students. Right now, Idaho high school students are required to take and pass 1 year of United States history. They're also required to take the United States government and politics. They have the option of taking economics, and some schools offer world history programs. This is insufficient. What high schools do is not prepare people for careers. High schools are to prepare citizens for adulthood. What we do is we build character. And character education has been abandoned for generations because it's politically controversial. And we see the result. A generation of snowflakes, self-described sometimes snowflakes, who cannot handle reality because they have not been taught any perspective. I think that we in this state have an opportunity, because of the conservative voting population, to do something that could not be done in California or Connecticut or many other places. Through political action on the part of Republican elected officials, or through a statewide referendum to force the educational bureaucracy, which displayed not a whit of interest in even considering the possibility that the current graduation requirements are inadequate. We have an opportunity, because of the conservative nature of Idaho voters, to actually try to effect change from outside of the educational bureaucracy. This is what I'm proposing. In freshman and sophomore years, students are required to take Western Civilization 1 and 2, which is basically ancient and medieval history, focusing on Greece, on Rome, on Judeo-Christian heritage, and on the Germans who took over and created Western civilization in the ashes of Western Roman Empire. As sophomores, they would study from the Renaissance up through present day, focusing on how European civilization reaches out to contact and then conquer the world. To the point where today, our greatest rival in the world, the People's Republic of China, is governed by a Western philosophy of government, communism, not Confucianism. The world was westernized. But among the people who are westernized, American young people are some of the least acculturated of all, because they do not systematically learn their own heritage. Some people are afraid that, well, perhaps it's white supremacist. Baloney. The heritage of the West is a universal heritage. Send us your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free, Anna Lazarus wrote on the Statue of Liberty. The history of Western civilization is the possession of every American citizen, whether their heritage comes from East Asia, South Asia, West Asia, Africa, the Americas, or Europe. It is what we hold in common. A history that produces a unique thing in this world. The concept of inalienable rights, the concept of a government that works for the people and not the other way around. Instead, the closest thing that modern schools offer is world history, a watered-down, politically correct mishmash that presumes that the Zulu and the Ashanti tribes, as glorious and wonderful as their warrior history was, is equivalent to the history of Athens and Sparta or of Rome. This is nonsense. I appreciate many cultures, but we need to teach our kids systematically our own culture and civilization, our shared culture, and we fail to do this. The result is a fractured society. The last 2 years of high school should be United States History 1, taking us from the origins of the colonization of the Americas by the First Peoples, up through the Spanish-American War, when America steps out onto the world stage, and finally in 12th grade, United States History 2, that covers the United States becoming the gendarme of the world policeman, and establishing the Pax Americana to take over after Britain after World War II. Now, civics and United States government can be studied in the context of the historical epochs where they're developed. Eastern and Southern civilizations and cultures can be studied in the context of their first contact with Western civilization and of the major interactions between the two. The purpose, though, is to reorient the study of history so that young people are introduced to their own culture, their own culture's values and assumptions, so that we stop fracturing this country, allowing our people to be divided by race, by sex, by age, by income, out of many, one. And history, the history of Western civilization, is one way to do that organically over time. So I'm asking this committee to consider a platform resolution to this effect, or moving so that we can, if you are in support of this initiative, encourage elected officials to try to pressure the establishment that runs education in this state, like any other, to adapt itself to a more traditionalist Western civilization and United States history oriented program designed to create not world citizens, but American citizens. Thank you for your attention. If you have time for questions,
I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
And it's actually for you, and I want to put this bug in the ear of the legislators that our president is pretty good at the ones on the Education Committee. Isn't there, in fact, a legal imperative to teach this? Our Constitution says that we have these schools for the purpose of educating, or for the purpose of the stability of the republic. How can a republic be held in a stable condition if you don't know what it is, how it operates, and why it exists the way it does?
The answer is that what has happened is in the last century, schooling, as it's become more mass, has moved away from the historical teaching of the Constitution into an abstract social studies, civics, and U.S. government format. Studying these things in abstraction does nobody any service. These ideas come from somewhere. They're what people thought were worth living for, dying for, and killing for. Now, as to the history of public education in America, public schools were established just at the time when we became truly an immigrant nation. When we had people from Ireland and Germany and the shtetls of Eastern European Jews coming here, and the imperative was to make them American. The melting pot was achieved in the public schools more than anywhere else. But we've moved away from this in the mid-20th century. We've got to return to the primary mission of public education, which is not career building, and it's not building some utopian sense of a globalist citizen. It's building Americans who understand what is worthwhile in the republic, what makes us special. They take for granted, because the kids know nothing else, that we live in a prosperous, peaceful society where you can go to the supermarket and get orange juice anytime you want, any time of the year. This is not usual. We have the lifestyle of Olympian gods, and we don't even appreciate it. The study of history gives perspective in that way. Yes, sir.
The late Justice Scalia said, who decides? Who would decide this curriculum that you propose?
Well, here's the answer. This is what I do for a living. So, in my proposal, I do. I'm willing to debate, and I have 9 of these others. If people are interested, I'll be happy to hand them around. If you like, here, I'll actually pass them this way, pass them this way. If you're interested, hold on to it. If you're not, pass it on. Yes.
Could you briefly tell us the part that John Dewey played in bringing us to this point?
John Dewey played the same role in education that Woodrow Wilson played in American history. He is the progressive architect of a system that is, in essence, designed, to quote Woodrow Wilson, the purpose of the university is to make the son as unlike the father as possible. John Dewey's theoretical education comes from a German tradition that produces Hegel, Marx, and socialism and communism. It's a utopian, materialistic idea of what education is for. Education is quite a traditional, at least history education is very traditional. Socrates understood everything that a person like me would do. To further up on your question though, to broadly list out those things that are Western civilization will be politically controversial, but it's something that most historians can agree upon, as long as they're not trying to be diversity czar. However, it's true that a high school student that's oriented toward shop classes is going to learn a different style of history than a person who's interested in going to a four-year college. I have no problem with that. I started out in special education. I think that there was a benefit in teaching my special ed kids about Greece and Rome. There was something of value to be taught there. So the answer is a traditional notion of what Western civilization is. That would be the curriculum. And yeah, John Dewey, I love him about as much as I love President Woodrow, which ain't much. Yes, sir.
Now, I'm chairman of the Idaho Virtual Academy, and so we have some experience in this tug of war, because what's going on, it's not like you're coming out of the blue and saying, let's do things differently. You're fighting against a glacier that's moving the wrong way.
Yes.
Just this summer, at our annual in-person board meeting, we went from teaching Western civilization to second and third graders, replacing that with social studies. And why, we asked, when all of us on the board, all the parents serving on that board, love the history program. It was developed, Core Knowledge, Hirsch.
Yeah.
It was fantastic, but math, there's state standards for that. Social studies, there's state standards for that. Literature, state standards. History, there's no state standards at the elementary school level.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah,
it's one of the many imperatives. Education has been hijacked by the Federal Department of Education. One of President Reagan's mistakes was not abolishing that thing when he became president in '81. Honestly, the standards movement makes sense in the light that public schools were not teaching valuable and worthwhile material. But it's gotten to a point where, in the name of accountability, the federal government, through the Common Core initiative, has micromanaged state programs. And Idaho's core is basically a mirror image of the Common Core. So what you have is a federal curriculum. If any totalitarian gets in control of a country, one of the first things they do is they take control of the curriculum in schools. Our republic was founded on the notion of federalism. Education is a local and a state matter. The federal government has no constitutional role, none. And yet, it now casts its long shadow over all of our schools. One result of this is that I'm here. I'm not from California, I'm from Maine. I liked Maine. But Maine schools became oriented towards a philosophy of education that I found odious. And I looked throughout the entire state and was honest about who I was as a traditional educator and an out-of-the-closet conservative. I couldn't find a single place that wanted to hire me or that I wanted to work for. I moved 3,000 miles because the Charter Academy wanted someone like me, and is a school oriented in a philosophical fashion that I find healthy for students. I am so proud to be here, and I love this community so much. So the answer is, you bet it's a fight. Look, right now, the educational bureaucracy and many of the politicians I've contacted view me with absolute irrelevance. I'm not even a blip on their radar. I'll know that this initiative is gaining steam when they start demonizing me and anyone else. That's how you know you succeed. I've taken all sorts of time. Is there anything else that?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.